All right, good buddy Neil Blackman. So as I mentioned last week as well, I put out the email to Gators Breakdown Plus members and asked them for just questions that they had about the team. And Neil, Saturday Down South, Florida Basketball Hour, good friend of mine. And we discussed this on Gators Breakdown Plus a couple of weeks ago, but deserves to be expanded. Teased this earlier. Neil asked, what's a bigger game out of the gate for Florida? LSU or Miami? Both games in the first month of the season. Game 3 at Baton Rouge. Game 4 down in Miami. Back to back. Worth diving back in. All right, Gator Swag. Come on. Can't say both. You got to pick. You got to pick. Not going to let you get away with that one. Man, there's so many ways to look at this. And it's a close one. The results astounded me, honestly, how close this was. And I can see why. There's arguments, great arguments on both sides. So there's the results right now. Out of, if I can see that, my screen on there, that end is small. Out of 2,600 votes. 2,600 votes. About as close as you're going to get, fellas. 51.5% say Miami. 48.5% say LSU. About as close as you're going to get. That is crazy how close that is. I didn't expect it. I thought one team might run away with it 60-40. I thought it'd be close. Not this close. This is a great poll. This is what you call a great poll. Bigger game for Florida in 2025 and why? Good arguments on both sides. I'll dive into it right quick. I think I lean Miami as a bigger game. And I'll say this, not trying to put on a pedestal that Miami team. I'm probably be putting on a pedestal the LSU team. It's a little bit of a reverse psychology maybe. But I'll say bigger game because I don't think you can lose to Miami and be the team that you think you can be. I think LSU is going to be better than Miami, if we want to look at it that way. And I don't think Florida's going to get to a place they need to be if they go and lose to Miami. I think you can still lose to LSU, even though it's a conference game, and still go compete for what you want to compete with. Like if we get to the end of the season and Florida's a 10-2, 9-3 team, I think a loss to Miami would hurt more than a loss to LSU. Now, a win over LSU could prop you up as well, as I think this LSU team can be, probably will be pretty good. But I'm looking at it big picture. I'm looking at it. This is the year we are circling for Florida. To be a playoff contender. I think you can still lose to LSU and get into the playoff. I don't think there's any shame in going to Baton Rouge, which is going to likely be a night game if you look at the schedule that day. You'll get more of a pass for losing to LSU than you will lose to Miami. Now, if you lose to LSU, you got to bounce back and beat Miami. A win over Miami, a little bit of revenge from last year. Means a little bit more in recruiting in the state. A little more. NIL changes things like that, but it's, you still get a little bit, state bragging rights, and it kind of helps you. But man, it's tough. I see both sides of it. Like if you really strictly you're talking about the SEC in the SEC race, then yeah, you got to beat LSU. No, actually, you know what? No, you don't have to. That was part of my argument too. I don't think you have to. Here's the thing. I don't think any team in the SEC is going undefeated. I don't think Florida's going undefeated in the SEC. So you can afford a loss in the SEC. Now, don't worry, it'd be tough. You know, besides LSU, you have Texas. You have Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas A&M. So lose to LSU, and at best, you could probably only lose one more if your goal is to get to Atlanta. But even that changes. Like, conference wins aren't what they used to be. Don't get me wrong. I'd still want to be in Atlanta. I'd still love to be in the SEC championship game. But it's not a must to get to the playoff. It's not a must to get to the postseason. This expanded college football playoff has, like I said, ruined the do or die attitude that you used to have about getting to Atlanta and getting to the playoff. You don't have to have it anymore. And that's where I kind of circles back around to late in the season when I'm talking about if you're comparing resumes, and Florida's sitting at a 10-2, 9-3, and there's a loss to Miami there, could hold Florida back. A loss to LSU, who I think is going to be really good, won't hurt you as much. Casual Carolina says, LSU ain't better than Texas or Georgia. If we want to get to the playoff, we can't afford to lose to LSU or Miami, truth be told. Dave gave us a no-win poll. Hey, you don't even have to look at it that way, though. You can look at it in any way you want to. And many people looked at it as, you know, SEC championship. Many looked at it as recruiting. Many looked at it as bragging rights. I chose to look at it as big picture. And looking at it big picture, I think you can afford a loss to LSU more than you can Miami. Double Gator says you get 8 SEC games, only one shot at Miami. Yeah, this will be the last time Florida Miami play for a while. I don't know off the top of my head if there's any, I mean, Florida's got out of conference scheduled with Colorado, Nebraska, not Nebraska, Notre Dame. I forget who else. I think Cal and Arizona State were, but that may have got shoved to the wayside. So yeah, I don't know. This will be the last time you play Miami for a while. Interesting angle, and I thought about this too. The Best Savage says, just my opinion, even if we drop to LSU, if we go take care of Miami, the crowd will be electric versus Texas. We lose to Miami and LSU, and that crowd ain't going to be where we need it. Right. It'll still be a big crowd. We've seen it the last few years throughout Napier when, you know, team not winning, crowd's still there. But you're right. You're going to have to win one of LSU or Miami for that Texas crowd, for that game versus Texas, and that crowd in the swamp to be electric as it can be. Now, you can lose those two games, and it'll be up to the team to get the crowd into the game at some point against Texas. But if you want that crowd loud from the start, and you want the trash talk all week, and you want the game hype all week, that kind of builds towards that big crowd that's just loud from the first snap of the game, you're going to need Florida to do something before that Texas game. And especially when there's a bye week too. So yeah, you're gonna need something to a proof of performance before that Texas game to get the crowd fully into that Texas game. Alvaro Ordonez, we cannot lose to Miami, period. Colorado Gator King, good to see him right here on the YouTube side of things. He said it in the poll on Twitter, LSU is the bigger game. LSU is the first big game sets the precedent for the rest of the season. Certainly can see that angle too. I think Florida beats Miami either way. Yes, Kane fans, if you're listening right here, May 13th, go ahead, bookmark it, save it, whatever you want to do. That's fine. Sure, I know. And the first thing to be up, I bet you thought Florida would win last year too. I did, but yeah, here we go. Like I said, there's good arguments on both sides of this. It'd be hard for me to swallow. It'd be hard for me to fathom going to Baton Rouge, getting that win, and then go to Miami and lose the next week. And I guess you could say, I mean, I'd probably go back to like 2012 when Florida played Texas A&M in Texas A&M's first SEC game. Went on the road. Johnny Manziel's first SEC game. We had the first half of the emergence of Johnny Manziel. Florida shuts him down in the second half. Florida gets a big road win against Texas, a really good Texas A&M team that it turned out to be. Then Florida had to go on the road the next week to Knoxville, and it's still early enough in the season where, who was it? I forget, Tyler Bray at quarterback and Derek Dooley, they're leading Tennessee in a big game in Knoxville. Florida has to go on the road 2 weeks in a row at Texas A&M, in Knoxville, and Florida goes and gets 2 big early season wins. And I think that game against Texas A&M gave that team a little bit of confidence to go and win in Knoxville the very next week. So I'd have a hard time. I have a hard time swallowing going to Baton Rouge, getting that victory over what I think is going to be a good LSU team, only to go the very next week and lose to Miami. So I think you're right. It can be that LSU game can set the precedent. Also, what does LSU look like? The Battle of Death Valley, week 1 against Clemson, at Clemson. We know Brian Kelly in the first games of the season has been a complete failure. Losing to Florida State, losing to USC. He could not get that big first win of the season, the first game of the season. So what does LSU look like a couple of weeks later? How desperate are they going to be when Florida comes to Death Valley? The Best Savage said LSU is a 50-50 game and in Death Valley. Losing that one isn't crushing to our season. They lost to Miami and we might be 7-5. That's kind of where I lean to. If Florida loses to Miami, Florida's not as good as we thought they would be. That would be my prediction. Is it possible Florida could lose to Miami and still go do some good things? Sure it is. But if you tell me right here, mid-May, Florida loses to Miami, and then Florida's not going to Atlanta, and Florida won't be in the college football playoff. That would be my prediction. I find that hard to believe that would happen. I do think you can lose to LSU and still find your way in Atlanta somehow. Still find yourself in the 12-team college football playoff. Marty Mann, probably going to another way to explain it. I think you can lose a competitive game to LSU in their place and maintain respect, but lose to Miami at their place and you lose respect. Yeah, somebody put that in a comment earlier and said, yeah, a loss at LSU in that environment would be more excusable than basically a bowl game environment, because there's going to be a lot of Gator fans in Miami at their stadium. So you look at it that way, and yeah, you can see it.